Welcome to Declutter for Change, the podcast where we clear the visible and invisible clutter for your mind, body, soul, and home to make room for the life you actually want to live and love. I'm your host, Heather Clark, and I'm joined by veteran and coach Paul Miller to discuss how to heal childhood trauma, reformat unaddressed memories, and organize your inner world so you can take back complete control of your outer reality. Paul is a retired staff sergeant of the Alabama Army National Guard, combat veteran, entrepreneur, and founder of Uncivilized Rebirth. After serving more than 16 years in the military, including multiple deployments to Iraq and Kuwait, Paul faced a series of life-changing challenges, including PTSD, childhood trauma, divorce, chronic illness, and the difficult transition from military service to civilian life. Hi, Paul. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing very well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. And listeners, you really want to tune in to Paul's story. He does have quite the life experience. And Paul, I'd like you to tell the listeners, how did you become a coach? And let us know about yourself.
A way to boil it down is that I've been through so much in my life and like so many traumas and pursued so much healing. I got to the point where I looked back on it and I was like, oh, I have a path through a really terrible life. And if I document this and construct it in a way that I can teach to others, then I can help other people, and all of this pain and suffering will not have been for nothing. So then I started developing a program. I built it out and I was like, oh, I can teach people this. And so ultimately, from my pain, I developed a roadmap and I have the desire to teach it to other people. And that's how I came about it.
And it's so amazing how you were able to, because again, a lot of us, we go through crap, we go through traumas, but learning the bio of you and like reading it and stuff like that, learning about you, you've been through way more than the average person would go through. And yet you're still here wanting to teach others how to go through that. So taking your pain and making something out of it that can actually help others, let alone while you're doing it. I promise you're probably helping yourself too, still continuing going through it. So with that, like, what are some things that you've noticed when you were going through these? Now, I'm not going to relive the trauma or anything like that, but what were some things that as you were on the other side or while you were going through it, did you notice a common denominator of how you dealt with it as you got through?
Honestly, I think that there was this driving force inside of me that I always knew I was meant for a greater purpose. And I always knew like this isn't how things are going to end. And I just felt this deep drive at a soul level to keep going and not quit. And I knew that like, and again, I was searching for meaning and reason. So I would just go through with just severe grit and determination. That's the best way I can put it.
So with that, like, is there a way that you can, let the listeners know, like, if you're feeling this, or if this is like the point in your life, because again, some people are going through trauma. Some people are, even just a divorce is a traumatic experience for some people. And
Yes.
been through that and then some. I've also been through a divorce myself. Like that has such a significant impact. And I know a lot of people lately, especially, during COVID, after COVID, that was a big thing for a lot of people. What are some things that, as they're going through it and they're thinking, oh, this is just the crappiest, like whatever the case may be, like they're literally, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, all that stuff. What are some, like a couple tips, maybe one or two that you felt were your best or favorite things that you did? Like, yeah, grit is great, but how do you teach that? How do you show that to the listeners or like, as they're going through it?
Sometimes I think grit is something we're born with. Not, to be like, I don't think everybody might have it. Just like I don't have the desire to be a musician, or be an artist painting. I know there's different type of artistry that it's different for different people. But something like in the middle of it that I started to develop as I got older, it was just trauma after trauma. It's like was having a vision of the future and then staying focused on my nest, which is making my bed, taking the trash out, checking the mail, drinking water, taking a shower, getting a haircut, doing the dishes. Those small things are victories every single day. So when you come back in and you have this checklist of these little small chores, when you're in the midst of this horrible battle, you can check, oh, I did that. I did that. But in this, you're developing discipline and you're developing habits. So when you're in the darkness, you can develop a lackadaisical and lazy habits where you just ignore stuff, or you can develop these habits of discipline while you're going through that. And so it's for the reason for yourself to feel good when you walk in after, let's say, going to court or going to see the lawyer or coming back from the hospital, whatever it may be, your bed's made. The trash is taken out. You look in the mirror and you're put together. You put on clothes and they're not wrinkled. These little things feel good. And then when things clear up, these become easy habits and
Mm,
they create a more disciplined purpose. And it's sometimes these little bitty cranny nook holes that you can cling to give you purpose. Like, oh, because if you're serving yourself in a trauma, because a lot of times we can get forgotten about and people ignore us. And I know for me, it was that way. So I clung on to my disciplines with all my heart at
yeah.
times.
Well, and I also find that when the outer world is so chaotic, as trauma is, as whether you've got a loved one that's in a hospital or whatever the case may be, this little simple things, like, yeah, they may seem simple, like making your bed. Okay, yeah, cool. Like I make it every day. I literally am actually making my bed as I'm in it still. But anyways, trying teaching my children that. But it's those little things that you were saying that builds the habit. But I think it also allows you to have some form of control because you cannot control what's happening on the outside. It is so chaotic out there that, you know what? I'm going to control my inner world. I'm going to control my immediate, my bed, my hair, I'm going to shower. I'm going to do this so that I can still feel human-ish in this chaotic chaos world.
Man,
And
that's
yeah,
such an amazing point.
and like for me, I know like there, like I said, like I've been through divorce, like the court twice. The first time I had a lawyer, second time I was self-rep. So that second time it was on me. Like I had to make sure I had stuff going. Now at the time I had to shut down my online business and stuff like that. I had to shut down the podcast, all that fun stuff. But I was able to still do, like you said, those daily tasks of getting up and making my bed, getting up and, having the coffee, like just still whatever. Cause, I'm about to go in front. Well, at the time it was Zoom because we were during COVID as well, but it was in front of a Zoom. Okay. Well, I can't control the outcome more than what I've already argued in my papers, but I can control that while I'm on there and I look in my, my desk or I look in my kitchen, it's clean, it's tidied. I have some like sense of control on that end because of the fact that, okay, that's mine. That is mine. I can do that. Now, mind you, obviously I had the kids and stuff like that, that they also were part of it. But do you find that when you come out of the chaos or as you're coming near the end of the major in between, that those habits just become kind of like secondary, like you don't even actually have to think about them afterwards?
They become programmed in, I believe, and that is just an automatic baseline. It's like, oh, I'm gonna make my bed. Oh, I'm gonna do these things just because you. It's like a soldier training in basic training. They make it really tough and difficult, and then when you get out there and do it, it's like just automatically programmed in. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then to talk about what you said about when everything is in chaos externally and we can't control anything and there's all these different factors because humans are autonomous beings and Sometimes they choose not to be nice and literally mess with our lives, and we feel out of control. And those are the times where we can crash out, and people want us to lash out.
Hmm.
People want us to scream so they can step back and be like, "Look, I told you so," when they were gaslighting. But like you said, if we pull back in and be like, I'm going to control what I can control. And sometimes that gives us that thing to hold on to. But like, I can control these things. They are free to do what they want. They will not get a reaction on me. They will get discipline out of me. And that's a great tool for people that gaslight and that mess with our lives to just show being solid. I think that that's a valuable thing you brought up. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too is, I know a lot of the, you hear all these quotes and stuff like that. The only thing you control is the way you react to something. And
Yes.
instead of, like I think if you get into that point of knowing, okay, I know I'm going through something. I'm going through whether it's a loved one that's passing, like, in the current stages of dying, or they're very, very sick, or, dementia or anything like that, or you're going through a divorce, or you're going through whatever it is, and you have to consciously decide, like, I'm going through this, but I also have to understand, where am I going to say, no, I'm not going to react to this. I'm going to pull away from it. And then, because for me, I'm not the type of person, like we're in an argument of some sort or whatever, I'm not the type of person to like go, okay, let's go. Let's get this over and done with. I have to pull back. I have to go into my like almost cocoon, or in my room usually. And I have to be like, okay, logically speaking, whatever, etc. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're reacting, it's because you're emotional to something that was there. It may not even be what happened. It could be that triggered something from the past. I have been there. I have broken things for that reason. And it took me that, like, the one last time where I was like, whoa, hold on. You need to really pull back. Like, when you feel this, and I don't know about you, but for me, it's almost like a roar from the belly all the way up. And then it's like, whoa. And like my hands usually go into a fist, my whatever. And I'm like, okay. And that's when I have to retreat. I know that that's my nope, retreat, whatever that. I don't care how long I have to go away for. I just know I have to, because I'm now emotionally reacting to what's currently happening, or I'm emotionally reacting because of what happened in the past. Do you find that that was with yourself as well, and with those who you help as well?
You just hit the nail on the head because I discovered in my journey, let's take for instance, I was I went through divorce as well, and I had a very abusive father. And then all of a sudden my wife leaves and he starts calling every day. My father didn't care about me when I was going through the hospital or going through PTSD after war. He didn't care about me as a teenager driving around my truck, living in people's couches, like when I was like right before I joined the military. Then all of a sudden, as an adult, he starts calling me every day, asking me questions. And I realized he's feeding this to my ex-wife. He's telling her
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing. And that was betrayal at such a deep level. And I wanted to blow up and I wanted to lash out and crash out
Yep.
100%. And I controlled myself. But later on, I started doing a deep dive of why is it happening this way? Why do I feel this way? I've been a soldier at war and I handled myself better and I didn't have this inner turmoil. And I realized there was an energetic tether that's going to a memory in my past that's been not processed properly, that has this deep coding of emotional lashing out and it's trying to pull it up and play that. Like you have a player piano, you put music on it and it plays.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brain was trying to pull up this instruction of like, this is what you do in this situation. And you find yourself having to fight it. And so I realized for me to grow, I had to go deeper inside myself and to process those memories properly to where they're no longer brought up and they try to play presently, because then that presents itself in my outer immediate world and
Hmm.
people have control over me. And I had to do that with many, many, many childhood memories and adolescent memories of going in and actually reformatting them. That's in my work. That's what I call it. And it presents in our outer world. And people literally, that's how they play us by like puppets, our parents
Hmm.
and our loved ones. They know how to trigger those old memories. It's evil, in my opinion.
Oh, it is
Um,
absolutely.
but it's
And
that deep work that presents in our life right now. Or we just practice avoidance. And
yes,
that adds up in a bad way.
I was about to say that one is probably that was actually where I was. I was the avoidant as, a child. I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna, do my own thing, or I'm gonna avoid all of this. And then obviously, like you were saying, that adds up. When I bottled things up, it presented itself later on. It presented itself in a way that was so much more explosive than had I been taught and, understood that feelings come up in every way. Whether that, like, anger in itself is a feeling, like all of that are emotions that are safe to have in a safe way. And it's crazy how, for me, and I have kids, so I have two kids and stuff like that, and they've seen me in that angry motion. Now we joke about it because there's one time there was an incident that my son likes to say I threw it at him. I'm like, I didn't throw it at you. But I had this like one little heater, and we were in a basement apartment. This was before this house that we're in. But I had this space heater, and it was one of those ones that was the anti-tilt. And because the basement flooring was so wobbly, whatever, it would always constantly turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. So I was like trying to move it around. And obviously, it wasn't because of the heater. I wasn't angry at that. Yes, I was angry at that. And I was like, okay, whatever. But I took that heater. I just got so mad and I tossed it right on the floor. I was like, that's it. I'm done with this. Meanwhile, obviously, my kids saw that. No, I don't hit my kids. No, I didn't ever hit my kids type thing. I was so angry. I had bottled up everything prior to, because I think that was also at the time that I knew, oh no, I had just broken up with the boyfriend at the time too. And that was a very toxic relationship. And it was one of those things where I'm like, I didn't have a space earlier to express it properly. So instead, I expressed it in a toxic way and I threw the heater. I broke the heater. So, needless to say, we didn't get heat that day. But those are the things that, if we don't do it in a healthy way, if we don't train ourselves and our bodies to understand that when that welling up is, when it happens, like, and then you go, okay, nope, I need to walk away from whatever situation this is, whether it's you write stuff down, if you're a journaler, if you're just somebody that needs to write it down on a piece of paper and go, okay, I'll revisit this when I'm in the right headspace. Because in those moments, we are not in the right headspace. So do you find that with the people that you do help, what are some, like, what's one or two things that they can do that is very, besides the make the bed, like that's the first step, like, okay, little things like that. But when to recognize those feelings that aren't for the right now, that it's something that probably happened as a childhood or years ago, etc.
And I would like to say that men are not big, or they've been taught to repress their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably women too. To learn to validate our own emotions, learn to give ourselves space in the appropriate environment on how to express those emotions and validate them ourselves. I like mirror work. I've been in the mirror as an adult crying because
Mm.
I was in pain. And I would look myself in the eyes and I would say, it is okay to feel this way. It is okay to cry. And I would just validate myself, because sometimes we don't have that person to come up and give us a hug, or tell us it's going to be okay. So when we start giving ourselves space to momentarily hold our emotions at bay when we get triggered or when people gaslight us, because I've experienced that a lot in the civilian world, just too much of it is
Yeah.
poisonous. To feel that feeling in that moment and be like, ah, I got you. I see what you're doing. Identify what's going on. Because when we repress those emotions, the brain's like, okay, where do I file this new memory? And say it's being gaslighted. And you have those big emotions and you're repressing them. And you maybe go zone out and just like, I'm going to watch TV for 6 hours. I'm going to go drink beer. I'm going to go smoke weed. I'm going to go for a drive and blast music and just totally distract the mind until that memory is just kind of just, I don't feel that way anymore. We have completely distracted. But that memory is energetically attached to that deep memory of that deep pain. And so it has this huge emotional coding. So that new memory of being gaslit that you repressed and you didn't validate yourself goes and gets stored with that big heavy one, and then another one and another one. And they eventually pile up so much that it's like when a bully picks on somebody over and over and over, and then that kid blows up, and everybody's like gets mad at that kid that blows up because they didn't see the picking that went on in in
Yeah.
silence. So those new memories that are getting added on that are emotionally heavy and triggering, they get stacked up. It's like this portion of your library that gets a heavy amount of books. And then all of a sudden they all blow out one day and
Yeah.
it's expressed emotionally in the wrong environment. And I want to share this with people, like in our society, people have been taught to be evil and they don't even know it. And they try to gaslight people. If you
Yeah.
watch social media, so much of it when they're filming in real time is like, look at this person blowing up in Walmart. Look at this person crashing out over this. They didn't show the other people that were picking at them. They didn't show how they have been gaslit. And our society is now so weak and pathetic. Men are weak and pathetic because there's so many rules, and they're like, men aren't, oh, you aren't allowed to go up and just knock somebody in the mouth and be like, that's some BS that you did. Like
Yeah.
150 years ago, 100 years ago, 70 years ago, we're humans. If you F around, sometimes you got to F and find out.
Well,
But
and I think
now,
like you were saying, the 70 years ago and stuff, there was no social media. There was no, oh, I've got to capture this moment and do the highlight to show how terrible this person is. Meanwhile, well, what about the first 5 years that person had been bugging them? Like you were saying, like, let's take the bully example. I was somebody who was bullied as a kid. In grade 6 and 7, I was absolutely, and it was in silence, in quiet. If I told anyone, oh, I had, this, and I was the new kid at the school, so I was like, okay, cool, like whatever. So I became very introvert, very like, oh, I'm just gonna be by myself. But then one day I was just like, I'm done. Like I am so freaking done. And I forget what I ended up doing, but it was the last of that. And I remember my grade 8 graduation, my bully, my number 2 bully, I should say. Number 1 never talked to me after that, but number 2 bully came up to me and she goes, I am so sorry that is what we did. And I was like, listen, I get to live with my life and my actions and my choices. You have to live with the fact that you did that to somebody else. Like that is on you. Like that was my response. I was like, I'm done with this. Like whatever. And then I'm here to find out by grade 9, my like number 1 bully, she ended up in jail and she ended up like this, whatever. I was like, man, there's your life choices. Like it's those things. Whereas, like I was saying, like 70 years ago, there was no social media. There was no capturing this moment. Because if I was had a phone to capture my bullies, I promise you, she wouldn't have done it. She wouldn't have done what she did. She wouldn't have slapped me across the face. She wouldn't have got me to do this, got me to spend my money on all that stuff, because that would have been it. But now we have such a like cross section of, okay, a bully is doing it behind things, knowing that there's cameras. But then all of a sudden, when that person lashes out, like you said, oh, everyone's recording it because it's a fight. And all of a sudden, that kid that just got bullied for the past 2 years is now the one in the wrong? No. They just decided enough's enough.
That's really cool how you brought that up. First off, like I was bullied too. I know what it feels like, so I can empathize with you. It it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird intersection now where we're at because I have found that the phone is great accountability. Um,
Mm,
and then here's a little story. There's a huge generation of men and they're like between like 60 to 80 who are very immature. They're stuck in their adolescence
hmm
and they still conduct themselves in the way they did when they were broken and hurt. And they're very, very childish. They locked in, they stopped maturing.
Yep.
And so I ran across this with a neighbor who started trying these old school tactics of harassing in private until I would blow up to try to show the neighbors. And I was in the military for 16 years. I worked at a shooting school for special operations. I knew a lot of cool people, learned a lot of cool things, and I know pattern recognition. And so I
hmm
tried to figure out, and you'll see where I am bringing this around for other people. I analyzed what was going on. I was like, why is this guy doing this? And then I realized, oh, he's trying to make me blow up. So I reverse Uno card. I was like, I'm going to start recording every interaction as much as possible. And I did it for 3 years and I took it to the police. And they're like,
Oh,
do you
wow.
want us to arrest him? I was like, well, let me think about it. So that's to tell people like it a recording device is a great tool for your protection. I
hmm
would like to say give people grace because they don't know what they're doing. They've been programmed and trained to be not good people. And if you look at these people, we have to have grace also because one time they were a cool, happy little kid that just wanted to have joy in their life and have fun. And they were broken so severely, they only know how to be this broken person and they don't even know it. So the goal, I think, shouldn't be to try to make somebody look bad, but hold them accountable and then give them space without us making fun of their lashing out and just be
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm not going to do anything. I have evidence, but hopefully give them space to do some reflection of why they're acting the way they are.
Yes,
Because,
because we're not condoning that what they do is okay. We're saying,
no,
yes, everyone has some sort of brokenness in them, whatever, but at a certain point, you have to take accountability for your own actions. Again, with me, like when I threw that heater, and my kids and I joke about it now because my son now turns it into I threw it at him. I'm like, I absolutely did not. But I took accountability. I'm like, yeah, I told the kids, I said, I never should have done that. I never should have taken it out on the heater. I should have, obviously, I was stressed. I was this, I was whatever. But it's that taking accountability that changes the outcome. That if that neighbor had taken accountability, realizing that, hey, this is not right, then yeah, things would be totally different between you and the neighbor. But because he didn't, because that maturity and no one taught him, no one showed him, like, that's not right, or whatever the case may be, or he just didn't care to listen because I'm right, you're wrong. Because I know a lot of people are like that, no matter what. But we're saying, like, you got to take accountability, but also know that others around you may not be as aware of their actions because it was so normal for them growing up.
we're in a generation where people are waking up to their behaviors and human interaction. But the previous generations, there's very few people that were aware. They
Yep.
are very just locked in and closed in, and they, like you're saying, like they aren't aware of their actions. Um, it's, and then we have to sit back and be like, okay, what can we do in our space? What can we do to help the next generation? Because either the last generation, the one before that, either they wake up or they just need to be given space. And you're like, okay, we'll keep y'all over here. We're going to do our thing and make humans better, and y'all can join, or we will not interact with y'all. It's just, we don't want your poison anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I find with me, like, I know a big thing for me growing up, or like even I can even say my own siblings and stuff like that, is Get in an actual apology. It is not like to actually say, I'm sorry. Like I've said it to my kids, like, I'm sorry, I should not have reacted like that. And I come back to them and stuff like that. We didn't grow up like getting those apologies. Like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
if we like I don't ever remember either one of my parents. Now, my father I haven't seen since 15 or whatever, etc. But it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? As I say it to my own children and I hear the way they react, like, oh yeah, no, like that's fine. I said, no, 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 it's not fine how I reacted. This is why I'm coming to you. And like, if that had happened to us, like, what a difference the upbringing would have been.
Oh man. Uh, dude, so yeah, like our generation, there was no admitting fault. There was
Yeah.
no apologizing. And for us then, we had to carry that burden of like, I'm bad. I'm
Mhm.
always bad. I can never do good enough. And what you're doing with your kids, like learned to do with my children. And it's so funny, like I get the same reaction from them. They're like, "Oh, it's fine. It's okay." And then I take that next step and I sit them down. I'm like, "No, it's not okay. Just because I'm older does not mean it's
Yep.
okay for me to act this way." And I put a plan in place of how I'm going to change my behavior because, man, that's going to free them up from a lot of guilt. And then, like, we're literally changing the next generation when we do those behaviors. And hearing you say that, it's like amazing. Just
Well,
awesome.
because I know, like a lot of this, I've said this over and over again for years, is it stops with me. Whatever it is, like I cannot put an actual like name on it. Like obviously the generational trauma is,
Yes,
one of those
that's the
things.
name.
Yeah. And but it stops with me because I'm like, I cannot look at my kids and go, how did my like to do the things that were happened to us as kids? And I was like, what? So I was like, no, that's not right. But to do the apology to my children, it was a no, no, no. See, here's what I'm trying to show you that my behavior there was not acceptable. So when you see somebody else doing that behavior and reacting like that, please either A, say something, whether it's to the person, whether it's to, when they were growing up, whatever, to an adult, but also don't interact with it if it makes you, because I'm trying my hardest to literally tell my kids, like, your gut instincts are literally life saving for you. Like, they will tell you when you walk into a room, when you do whatever, and your body goes, ooh, like something's not right. That's telling you something. Pay attention to that. Because I ignored mine for the longest time. And I got myself in situations that were not very good. When you listen to the gut and then you go, oh, wait, something's not right, then you get to process, okay, who am I around? What situation am I in? Where am I about to go? Or what have I just done? And be able to do that. Because if somebody taught me that, oh my God, I would have caught myself out of so many situations that ended up becoming trauma near the end. But like doing that, because generations before us, nobody taught them that it was okay to have feelings. Nobody taught them that, hey, that gut feeling, because maybe we didn't have the science on it. Maybe it was too woo woo for some people. Because even now, like even to just tell certain people, they're like, that's woo woo. Like you're like some spiritual like whatever. Like I'm not going to pay attention to you. If it's not in a book, then I don't believe it type thing. And now that it is getting to become in a book, like listening to your intuition, and that is actually becoming science. Like that is not just woo woo, that is not just fallacy. That is truth, that your body will react to it before your brain can actually put any form of like logic to it. And it's amazing what we can do with us. Yes, it sucked. We had to go through those traumas. It sucked that you had to go through all those. But the way that you're changing your children's lives as well is huge.
It's like we mentioned several times so far, a generational thing. We went from the agriculture to the industrial era, and now we're in the technological era, and humanity is becoming aware again because like we came in and destroyed the Native Americans, but they were incredibly intuitive. They were incredibly connected to their
Mhm.
spiritual side. They were far more grounded as being a species. And we destroyed that. And we're like, okay, there's only one way to live out of this religious book and follow our orders or you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so that's what the Bible is. It's like almost like a slave system. It's a way, the Christian religion is a way to back up the patriarchy almost of like, if
Mhm.
you don't obey, you're going to get hurt. And it's okay because this book says that God says, I can hurt you in secret to force you. But then as children, like you were saying, like our gut instincts, which are natural and are given to us, is
Yep.
energetic. And I no longer use the word woo even. It's the way it is. And
Yep.
people can suck it up and not like it. But energetically, your body's saying, get away. You're detecting wrong. You're like, get out of here. But as children, and I'm getting goosebumps now, we were forced to override that and forced into situations that our body was screaming at us to leave. And we had no choice. Either I get hurt, um, or I get hurt. I
I
must
know
ignore
those were the
everything.
only options. You get
Yes.
hurt or you get hurt. You get to choose which hurt it is.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go into much detail here, but in the 80s, I was passed around like a toy, like between
Mm.
relatives, strangers, like it was disgusting what happened to me. And so as an adult, I just would be in all these situations. It's like, why am I here? I don't want to be here. And I'd force myself to stay. And it took me
Mm.
years to start feeling that, oh, it's okay to trust my gut instincts. Um, do you mind if I segue a little bit into
Oh, go
about
ahead. Yeah.
cleaning up?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to hit on this. Our inner world has all these memories in the history of us as children and how we were taught to do things or forced to do things or treated bad or spanked or coerced. And that wasn't for everybody, but for a lot of people, I'm finding it was in our generation.
Hmm.
And so that can bleed over to our being neat and tidy nowadays. It's like
Hmm.
I had to dig in and be like, why do I avoid washing the dishes? So I went back to my childhood and I realized it was a pretty crappy situation the way I was forced to do dishes.
Mm.
Then I would avoid folding clothes, and it was physically painful for me to stand there and fold clothes as an adult. And I had asked myself why. And so I had to go back to my childhood and be like, oh, that was totally messed up. And so then I had to start reparenting myself of saying, hey, it's okay to drop a fork. It's okay to break a dish.
Yep.
Um, you're doing a good job folding the laundry. I'm proud of you. You know, like you did something you didn't have to. This is awesome. You and just going in and sometimes we have to reparent ourselves from
Yep.
the first and talk to that inner child. Um, because that stuff from our childhood and the way we saw our parents do it, it's still playing out inside of us presently if we don't go in and do that inner work. So that's for me personally, I know, and for others, that's why so many things can be avoided in the house and not keep a clean space. But when you keep a clean space, you feel much better. Like have a clear mindset because now you're not seeking things to avoid what you need to do. You don't feel guilty anymore. You feel motivated and encouraged with that good self-talk. Um, so that's why I truly believe that organizing the inner world presents in the outer world, and that
100%.
there's so many gurus. They're like, start getting disciplined, start doing this. Doing stuff externally will not fix that inner work whatsoever. Like
No, it's got to
ever.
be a give and take. Like, yeah, sure, you want to do the outer world, great, to make yourself, but you still have to do the inner work. And this is why, my whole entire business is the mind, the body, the soul, and the home, because it's all of it. You cannot do just the home and not affect the other three. You cannot do just the body and not affect the other ones. They're all interconnected. And that is
Yes.
such a huge thing because a lot of people, even in my space, it's like, okay, I just clear the closet and you'll be good. Yeah, but what if something you found in that closet created an emotion in the body? but you don't remember the memory, but your body does, because our bodies
Yes.
store so much emotions and so much memory that you're like, you pick up something and all of a sudden your body like gets that tingle, like you were saying, like you got the goosebumps, you got whatever. Like our bodies give us feelings of, oh no, we remember this, because like I said, our bodies will remember even if our minds don't, because a lot of the times when it comes to trauma and stuff, our minds actually, like I know a lot of my childhood, I don't remember it, because I obviously, out of a survival tactic, forgot majority of it so that I can continue to just live. And that's one of the things that, yeah, you got to do the internal work, because when I started to do the internal work, I went, oh, this is not just from now. Oh, this is from way back when. And as much as I didn't ever remember the actual memories, or like, my sisters can remember when they were 3 or something. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like, I'll be lucky if I remember why I walked into a room. But when I feel it in my body and I go, okay, something's here, let's figure out what that is. And I don't actually have to know the details. I just have to be able to feel it. And I think that's what's different with our generation versus prior ones. We were never given ourselves or given the chance. They were never given the chance to, oh, this isn't normal. You have to figure out what this is, because if you don't and you keep following it up, as we talked about earlier, it's going to become explosive. And that's where the domestic violence abuse, the parental, beatings and all that stuff, that's where it comes from, because nobody's been taught to properly process those emotions and those traumas.
I believe that there's a huge wave of awakening or awareness that's changing in the human existence of raising, and some people call it raising their vibration or frequency, but it's an awareness is becoming more awake. And we now have this window internally where we're looking and be like, oh, what is going on? What is this? And there's all these resources now where people are like validating that. And
Yeah.
it feels so good, because you're saying that generation, they didn't have that awareness or that space, and they're just passing it on. Like,
Yeah.
we are the most trainable species in the human existence.
Yep.
But when you're not aware, you will just relive the way you're trained and conditioned. But
Yep.
when you become aware, you realize I'm an autonomous human. I don't have to live from this conditioning and this programming. And it's painful, it's uncomfortable, but I would like to encourage anybody listening right now, when you step onto that journey of looking inward and doing that work, you are so brave. And if you don't hear from anybody else, I'll be proud of you. I don't know you personally, but that is the bravest journey you can take inward, because, and you had already mentioned it, this generational trauma we're breaking. We're changing the course of humans. That's a big deal.
That's
By
huge.
doing your own inner work. It's I get in my feels about that. It's where it's at.
Because that's what keeps you going as well, because you're not the only one, but you know that you can help those who aren't where you are. And that's what brings us into the coaching side of things, because we're like, listen, I went through this, I know how crappy it was, but you know what, let's work together. Because again, back, community was a huge thing. Then we got separated. And what do you think COVID was? And what do you think the shutdown was? Like, to get that, because we were too community. So the evils, were like, oh, no, we're going to separate you. We're going to do whatever, etc., and cause you to be solidified and to go back into the depression, go back into the fear, go back into whatever, because that helps people. But there's so many people that are like, no, like we're not going down that road. Thanks, but no thanks. Let's continue on where we were going and trying to teach people that. But it's so hard when, again, like you were saying, we have society that wants to, put that evil part of it, that, a religion thing is very much like, I used to be Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I had Catholic schools and all that stuff. And I got to a point where I was like, but why? Like, why is this the thing? And then by that point, none of my teachers could explain. None of the priests could explain. None of this. And I was like, well, then I'm done. Like, I'm done with this. Like this. And that was one moment that I can say from my grade 8. It was, I don't know, but anyone who, is in the Catholic, whatever, you get confirmed in grade 8. I still don't know what it's about because I tried asking. I'm like, what's the point? Nobody could answer me in a proper way. That I was like, yeah, but what about this? And they couldn't answer. So I was like, no, I'm not getting confirmed. I'm done. I'm done with the church. I'm done with this. I'm done with all this stuff. If you're just trying to get me to blindly follow, sorry, I don't do that. Call me rebel. I don't care. But I was always that black sheep child. I was always that like, yeah, but what about this? But I realized that it helped me because I go against what the norm is. I go against, yeah, but why? That doesn't make sense. And again, as an adult, I'm now listening to my body a heck of a lot more and realizing, yeah, no, continue listening. And then I'm going to teach my children to do that too, because society is going to continue to try and pressure us to do one way or the other. And then if not, then you're considered, the outcast or the rebel or the, bad person.
If you look at an ant bed and you have a queen bee, you have the worker ants, the ants that build, the ants that take care of the eggs, the ants that are the warrior soldier ants. They are all born naturally to fill that role. Us as humans are born naturally into roles with this innate ability. And you have identified yourself as you're not programmable, you're a questioner, you're not a black sheep, you're a healer. And when we are born into these sick, broken, narcissistic, black sheep scapegoating families, we were put there for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We were it's like I believe in a higher power. I don't label it. I call it the creator at best. We wouldn't be the way we are. We wouldn't have proved how resilient we are to go through that. And so for anybody listening, that makes you a very special person, very special. And you're on your mission like that. Not many people pick up that mantle. A lot of people just sit back in society and play it small. They don't say, hey, wait, no, I'm going to make a difference. That takes somebody with the warrior spirit. That takes somebody that was nominated universally to do something far bigger and to realize that there's other of us out there that
Yes.
need to hear this message. And that gives me goosebumps. Like this is where it's at. Like this is the second time I got goosebumps. So hearing you and your story also is just huge validation and so encouraging and so amazing.
Well, and this is why I'm so happy like that, when I put out the post to say, hey, looking for podcast guests and stuff like that. And you had said yes. And I looked at your bio and stuff. I was like, oh, this gentleman has things that he has gone through and he's still wanting to help others. Like that right there to me, that's the ultimate, like, yeah, you went through some shit. Yeah, I went through some shit. And yet we still want to help people because that is, as you said, that's where we are. That's the purpose, quote unquote. I don't like usually saying like, oh, your purpose, but that is where it's like, I can go through all this crap and I can still be happy. I can go through all this stuff and I can still help others. And to be able to show that to our children, to show that to our clients, to show that to the listeners, etc., is such a huge, huge, huge thing. So thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and raising your hand saying, yeah, I got a story. I got things to talk about, because not many people in the same situation that you've been in are willing to talk about their stories and stuff like that. So thank you so much for that. But I would like to end with, I always end all of my podcasts because this is, like I said, I do the mind, the body, the soul, and the home. Is there a tip for the listeners that they can walk away with today or this week for their mind, for their body, for their soul, and for their home?
For the mind, I would say validating yourself, and to think about who you're going to be in the next 10 years and kind of like constructing your own character for the mind, because that's where it's at. What was the second one?
The body.
The body, self-care,
Mhm.
water, healthy greens, stay away from processed foods, self-care, clipping your fingernails, getting a haircut, taking a shower, putting on clean clothes, um, and try to quiet your mind. If you're sitting there with nothing to do, just leave your phone laying down for a little bit and just try to sit in the quiet for just a few minutes. Just try that. Your body will like it.
And then we've got the soul.
The soul, you are here for a greater purpose.
Mm.
I personally believe in reincarnation
Mhm.
and that this lifetime is crucial in the course of humanity and that you are important. You were placed here for a reason and that you are a soul in a vessel living a human experience and your soul is first. Like you look, when you look back at yourself, you're like, what's operating it? A soul.
Mhm.
And that's a powerful thing right there. That's a indestructible force in the universe.
That's awesome. And then last but not least, the home. What can they do for their home this week or today that would help them?
I would say make a list of 4 things that you can do every day that are important. And the reason you make a list is because when you do it, you can check it off.
And you get that dopamine hit.
Yep. And I would like you to choose either one drawer or under your bed or one spot in your house and say, for me, I'm going to organize this for nobody else, just for me.
Mm,
And I encourage you to go in, put a likes together. If it's trash, throw it away, or broken, throw it away. And if you won't need it in 6 months, donate it.
perfect. I absolutely love, especially that last one. Thank you, Paul, so much for coming on to the podcast. Listeners, I will have all of his socials in the show notes so that you can also go and listen to his story, watch his stuff, because honestly, it's inspiring to see somebody who's gone through so much and still puts a smile. Like you guys can't see him right now, but he's got a smile on his face. Like the fact that he's gone through all that stuff and still can put a smile on his face and still help others. What a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you again, Paul, so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.